Hello everyone, it's Colin with the Knox County Fire Bureau. And normally I would be coming to you in my capacity as a fire and life safety educator. But today I'm coming to you in my other role, that of a fire investigator assigned to the Knox County Fire Investigation Task Force. Now often, whether speaking at career fairs or talking in classes with high school students, I'm asked, what is a fire investigator? How do I become one? And what makes your job specialized and unique within the fire department? Well, for Arson Awareness Week, we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to talk about answering those questions. We're going to ask ourselves, what is a fire investigator? And we're going to take a time to look at some of the specialized equipment that I use in my role as a fire investigator. The first thing I like to do is kind of answer the question, what is a fire investigator? Now, the name is pretty self-explanatory. We investigate fires. Now, understanding that within a fire department or a police department or even a sheriff's office, much like here in Knox County, we have specialized individuals who have taken the steps to obtain some training along with certifications to investigate solely fires. Now, investigating those fires isn't just for criminal activity. A lot of the time what we're doing is we're trying to determine, looking at fire patterns with a knowledge of fire's growth and behavior after interviewing witnesses and looking at other evidence to determine whether that fire was intentional or unintentional. Now, when it's unintentional, is it accidental? And if so, is that accidental cause something that could be attributed to possibly a faulty appliance or just human error? In some cases, what we're trying to do as a fire prevention initiative is to identify those accidental causes, to come up with educational programming to prevent those fires from occurring in the future. It's a wonderful opportunity also for us to report to manufacturers when appliances or vehicles or some other piece of equipment fails, results in a fire, and that allows them to look at that piece of equipment, analyze the issue on their end, and then issue a correction, a recall, or replace that errant part, and therefore making that appliance safer. Now the other side of this is yes, sometimes people do, with malicious intent, start fires, whether it be for insurance benefit, to conceal a crime, as a method of revenge, or whatever the case may be. As in most states, the Tennessee Code Annotated allows for the criminal charge of arson in various forms. So one of our roles as a fire investigator is in an intentional fire where there has been an actor who has acted in order with malicious intent to destroy property by using fire, that we develop evidence enough to bring that person to justice through court and then to jail. The next question I'm often asked is how do I become a fire investigator? Well, I would first ask, do you like puzzles? Are there questions that you desperately need to know the answer for? Do you like to know how things work and take things apart and put them back together again? Well, if you do, then you have the beginnings of becoming an excellent fire investigator. A fire investigator is designed to pursue truth in what we see in front of us. Not what we perceive, but the things that we can touch. Fire patterns, right? Evidence, looking at this damaged piece for charring, looking at fire's development, growth, and behavior. All those things allow us to come up with answers to the questions of how did this fire start? So if you have those needs, then you're on your way. Now it's time to pick a career path. Now, obviously there are lots of classes you can take, and if college is in your future, please, by all means. There are lots of colleges that offer this type of experience, offer this type of education toward the furtherance of it. But in the state of Tennessee, all you have to do to start being a firefighter is be 18 years of age and apply and get hired by your local fire department. Now, if it is eventually your career goal to be a fire investigator, make sure you ask that department if they do offer that as a position. And if they do, expect that you're going to have to put some time in grade, right? Learn to become a good firefighter. Being a good firefighter, understanding how fire's growth and development impacts on a fire investigation is important. So, over time, studying, training, learning, continuing to learn, you eventually can find yourself at an opportunity in your career to become part of a fire investigation unit. Now, the other chosen career path could very well be law enforcement. In some cases, the local fire department may not have fire investigators, and that responsibility falls on local law enforcement, whether that be a city police department or a county sheriff's office. So if you want to be a police officer and fire investigation is your particular flavor, there may be opportunities for you. So again, make sure that you talk to your department as you apply. But once you're there, understand that there is a lot of training and a lot of continuing training, continuing education that will occur over the course of your fire investigation career. There are lots of certifications, both nationally and internationally, that you can attain, that you should attain, because it allows you to stay up to date with modern investigative techniques and to understand the current trends that are going on in the fire investigation community. Now, here in Knox County, what we do is we pair both detectives from the Knox County Sheriff's Office with firefighters through the Knox County Fire Bureau as one unit, a fire investigation task force. By putting both of those professions together at a fire, we wind up having lots of different experience and expertise to bear on helping us better determine that fire's origin and cause. So another question we're often asked is, what is the specialty equipment that we use as a fire investigator that makes our job role unique within the fire service or within law enforcement? Well, I'm going to tell you, I bet you anything once we take a look at some of these tools that I carry for my job, that if you looked hard enough around your garage, you may even have one or two of them at your home. So let's go ahead and pop the tonneau cover on my truck and take a look. All right, so here we are at the back of my truck. Now, there is some specialized gear that I use as part of my role as a fire investigator, but remember, keep your ear out, keep your eyes out for the tools that you may even have in your own garage. The first of which, when we first arrive to investigate a fire, there's some gear that we use as personal protective equipment. Now, sometimes that's a vest, traffic vest, high visibility vest, especially if the fire occurs near or close to an active roadway. But a lot of the times, it's just something as simple as a jacket that we can put on to protect our uniform, protect our exposed skin from the byproducts of combustion, the soot, the filth, the mess, right? Just to keep us safe and healthy. We also then have boots that we wear to protect our feet from things that are sharp, glass, for instance, nails, things that are on the ground that we might step on. But one of our most important pieces of protective equipment are helmets. A lot of the time, a helmet may seem rather silly, but protecting our head is important. And on a fire scene where there are lots of helmets around, it's important that our helmets bear a different color. This allows the incident commander to know who is on the fire ground at any one time, and to differentiate us as investigators from those firefighters fighting that fire. So that's why my helmet is blue as opposed to yellow or black or red or even white. So that way I'm identifiable at the fire scene. Now, sometimes the need for protecting our head is not necessarily as grave as we need a fire helmet. So I also carry in my truck a simple hard hat and face shield. This is then to protect my head in cases where I might find myself investigating a commercial fire, maybe at a manufacturing facility or a warehouse where hard hats are required, but I don't necessarily need to wear my fire helmet. Now, along with that specialty gear, we're going to use some tools to look for that origin and cause. And this is the tray that I use when I come out to fires for the very first time. And it's filled with some things that I use on a regular basis. The first of which is a tape measure. Very simply, a tape measure. What's the dimensions of the room? How much distance is it from this place to that place? How wide was the window? Tape measures, wonderful for measuring things. But the other things that I use are, for instance, tools like a small shovel for digging, right? Trowels for scooping or spreading away debris that's on the ground. Sometimes, if it's very thick, I may even use this small little pitchfork. Now, you're probably already recognizing these as very common gardening tools, and they are actually, but it's not necessarily the tool that's specialized, but it's the purpose with which we're using them for that's specialized. And in fact, something as simple as a synthetic brush broom can be very important when exposing fire's origin, when we need to protect those little tiny delicate pieces that might be underneath that a trowel moving them may damage. Brooms are excellent for that. Now, aside from the tools that I carry to actually look for the fire's origin and cause, there are some other tools that I have that help keep me safe. The first of which, flashlights. Very simply, a flashlight in the dark after a house has been on fire, light is a premium. And having a flashlight that I can even clip to my uniform and wear is one of the best safety equipment that we can carry. The next is something called a hot pen. And what this pen is designed to do is to sense when a circuit still has electricity service to it. And having something like this on us when we're investigating a house fire is important, because houses that were on fire have normally been sprayed with water. The last thing you want to mix is electricity and water. It's a wonderful tool to keep us safe. Another tool, which doesn't necessarily get the most credit sometimes, is simply a gas meter. In this particular case, this is a portable carbon monoxide detector. This is something that I can wear on my uniform, clip to it with a carabiner or something like that, that I can use to test to make sure that the environment is safe for me to breathe. In some cases, we may have to air a structure out using fans. Sometimes, if that's not available, we may even have some of the firefighters in our unit wear a complete firefighting ensemble, including self-contained breathing apparatus, in order to further investigate that fire scene. But a carbon monoxide detector, as simple as the ones that we have at our home that keep us safe, help me keep safe as a fire investigator as well. Now that we've investigated this fire, there's a lot of specialty gear that we use in order to make sure that we've done our job correctly. Now, a lot of that is documentation. And what's the most important part of documentation outside of having a pen and a pad? That's cameras. Cameras and pictures are important. Cameras and pictures capture what we see as an investigator at that scene. So all of us carry a very nice digital SLR camera that we can then take pictures of in various lights in various times of the day, using flashes, external flashes, using tripods for better photos. We can document that scene thoroughly, so that way we have a picture of the way that we saw that fire that night forever. And then subsequent days, as we come out, if there are multiple days involved in the investigation, we'll continue to take additional photos to document that fire scene as we move through it. So cameras, very important stuff. Now, once we take those pictures and document things, one of the things that we need to make sure that we're using for documentation is accurate measurements, like we talked about with the tape measure that's in my tray. There are other tape measures that we have. This one happens to be a 100-foot tape measure. Depending on what we're having to measure, maybe an entire house, it may be a strip mall. It depends on what we're measuring as to what measuring tape we'll have to use. But once we've completed those measurements, done our documentation, in the cases of a malicious fire, and sometimes even in an unintentional fire, there may be a need to secure a piece of evidence that explains how that fire started or how that fire occurred, and we need to protect that. So we collect evidence just like you would at a crime scene. Now, we don't necessarily do it the same as other places that you may have seen on TV. Sometimes it's just as simple as using an empty, clean gallon paint can. This is specifically good for collecting things like fire debris, just random debris, and then sealing it up inside the can. Sometimes, depending on what it might be, we may be using something as simple as an evidence bag or even a brown paper bag, especially if that item may be wet. But what if that item isn't a thing, perhaps, as much as it is a fluid? So we do carry collection syringes and collection tubes in order to collect that liquid material, right? And then have it subsequently, that evidence, sent off and then analyzed and determined as to what it might be. At the end of the day, once we've collected that evidence, we'll seal those up using evidence tape. And then you may even see our yellow scene tape. Fire scene, do not cross. Fire line, do not cross. Do not enter, right? When we put this tape up, it's not necessarily just a whatever and tell people to stay away, but when you see it, what you should understand is you need to be careful. This is a dangerous area, right? You need to stay out, stay away, that you run the risk of hurting yourself. On the other side of this yellow line is not a place to play. That's important stuff. Now, some of the other things that I do carry, right? I do carry power tools and other things, so let's go ahead and pop a top on one of my other storage cases and see what we've got inside. Now, once we've completed that fire scene investigation, one of the things that we do is we clean our tools. Now, as far as tools go, whether it be something as innocent as our little flashlight or something as big as a shovel, we need to make sure that they're clean and back in service for the next fire investigation. So inside my truck, I carry a variety of things, whether it be paper towels, trash bags, but I also carry other tools that I use in this container. And in here we have just old t-shirts, nice and clean, but they're old. And I have a way with a hose in my truck and dish detergent to make sure that all of our tools get clean after we have attached to a fire hydrant. And then, if I can reach it, my gracious sakes, we attach to the fire hydrant, and using a bucket with dish detergent in it, we use a scrub brush to make sure all that fire debris is off of the tools that we used at the fire. That includes the clothes that we wear, especially if we're using a turnout pants, coat, like a firefighter's clothes. We need to make sure those are clean as well, specifically our boots. All those byproducts of combustion, all that soot and ash, we need to clean that off before we get in our vehicle to make sure we protect our health and not take any of that home to the house. Along with that, inside here we also keep some power tools. I also have an extension cord in case we need power at the scene. I have a way to power small electrical tools as well as charge batteries from my truck, so the extension cord comes in super handy for that. Thanks for coming and spending time with me today, everybody. I hope everyone learned a little bit more about what a fire investigator is, how we come into our roles, and enjoyed looking at some of the specialized equipment that I use to investigate origin and cause here in Knox County. Now, folks, arson is dangerous. It's dangerous to people, to property, and to the community in general. And thanks to the Tennessee Advisory Committee on Arson, or TACA, you can phone the Tennessee Arson Hotline at the number that we're going to include in the details for this video and report anonymously any information you have related to an arson crime. Folks, the best thing is if you see something, say something and call the Arson Hotline and burn an arsonist.